start the recording there. So, yeah, a couple other questions just to get myself refreshed with you here. For like first off, how long have you been playing Overwatch for again?
It's like let's call it a year.
Mm.
Like with any frequency.
All right, and then let's say like the past 2 weeks or so. How often have you been playing the game? You say you were getting more competitive into it.
Yeah, the past 2 weeks I've played a lot.
A lot, a lot. All right,
Yeah,
and
so like a
then
couple of a couple of
yeah,
like most days and maybe a couple of hours a day.
sounds good. So then, final questions. Do you have any questions for me before we begin?
No, we're good, man.
All right, well then let's just
Just
hop
make
into
me
it.
good, bro.
Yeah, well that's what we'll try to do here. Just I'll be a minute or so while I'm looking for something to talk about.
Yeah, sure. Sure, it won't take you long.
Time to raise my APM. Defense matrix activated. Time to raise my APM. Routing power to forward shield.
All right, so first couple of things, I'll just mention them as they come up, and then I'll go more in depth if they keep happening. So, first off, we're coming out here, and we defense matrix, like with our defense matrix usage, we're not
I
really.
know, I know. I didn't even know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking. Ignore
Yeah,
that.
just in general here, we're not really defense matrixing anything. I guess
Yeah,
this one we can go in depth in right away. I guess most of them we'll probably just go in depth, assuming that they'll probably come up again. But here, when it comes to our defense matrix usage, most of the time when we're using defense matrix, we're trying to look out for certain things. We look out for abilities, for ultimates, for when we are low, for when our team is low, and then if we're like pushing or backing up, and it's like or like if there's a ton of spam damage. But besides that, we don't want to
right.
just eat up like
Just
random
general
shots,
damage. General
general
damage.
damage,
Yeah.
right? Because that's just pretty much wasting it, and you see here that it just goes largely wasted. So like we were to look at their team composition, like we could look through real quick and think, what are the things we can eat? Okay, we can eat a grab. We can eat maybe some missiles from Diva, but not much, right? That's not too important. Torbjorn ultimate we can eat, more orbs, and that's pretty much it, right? And then we can eat for those other situations we talked about. Here we come out and we just pretty much eat randomness, and then on top of that,
Yeah.
the other thing is
I
that
kind of knew you'd say
yeah.
this.
Mhm.
Because I thought myself, why did I just use the defense matrix?
Mhm.
That was it.
Yep.
But
The other thing
yeah,
I'm noticing is that we're just kind of saying a really far range here. So it's seeming as though we're not understanding our range on Diva already. So why don't we just go over that real quick? So we're at 1 minute. This is a like real important game changer here for Diva players, and I just went over
okay.
this like the other day with the Diva. Is you are a very close range character, and we're playing
Yeah,
as if we're
like they're shotguns, right? So
basically, yeah. So,
no.
um, let's get position like ourselves up here, right? Close range. Look how fast we melt somebody, right? Half a second, pretty much. Go to move, bump it up to 10 meters, right? Now this is still pretty decent, right? We're melting. Now that's not as fast, but it's like it's still it took us like a second and a half, right? Move up to 20 meters, right? Now let's take a look at this.
I do kind of sort of know that. I mean, I tend to
Mm,
like zoom in, boost or whatever you call it, the rocket boost
mm.
thing up to people and get up close. I think I was just waiting to see what move our team was going to
Yeah.
make to
So
run
in
destroy
that
all.
situation, just some things we can do. So like yeah. So let's go back to the game then. Like
On
let's like.
Eichenwald, I tend to try and burst through under the bridge as well to kind of
Mm.
like create space, like you said, was a kind of a tank's role, was to just disperse them.
Yeah. All right, so let's like skip forwards here. So like here, for example, let's see. We also don't hear the Doomfist who's behind us. That's another thing that we awareness-wise that we don't seem to notice that we can maybe be helping with. Here,
Routing power to
just what we
forward
could be
shield.
doing is just boosting real quick up to high ground. This would just
Okay,
mix
yeah.
it up a little bit, give us
Hmm.
some better positioning. We can decide to go left side if we want to. This also just give us better angles to work with if we wanted to. And then the other thing is that we just kind of want to look to at some point here push forwards, but we just kind of keep edging backwards. Whereas, let's say we just position up ourselves up here. Well, now we're just like, we're with more
Closer
so.
range,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're at closer range. Like this is more so like I probably say this is like 13 meters away ish, right? Whereas back there is more like 25, 30 meters away, right? So there's a big difference between the two. And we probably want to be closer just so we can do more damage. So it's just kind of that unnecessary distance that we're putting between ourselves. So we could just be just a little bit
Yeah.
closer. Yeah, because now right now we're kind of shooting, just kind of put in some spam shots.
APM
Yeah,
power
so there we
level
did
up.
boost in people. That's good. So let's rewatch this slightly. First off, So we kind of come in here. We come in at the Torbjorn. We get the kill. That's good. We're using boosters. We're using our rockets. That's all good there. But then we just start or like eating nothing in particular. Keep in mind that you cannot eat Zarya's
Eat the
beam.
Zarya
Yeah.
beam, yeah.
So here we're just not really eating anything in particular, and in fact, this would probably be a fantastic moment to just keep shooting because both of these people, like Zarya is really low. Zarya is pretty low here, and then the Moira is also decently low, so we just probably just keep shooting. Also, when paying attention to our health bar here, just awareness of our health bar. Like we see we're taking a bunch of damage, right? When you're taking damage, you'll see the damage indicators around your crosshair. You'll see it on the corners of your screen. We see we take a bunch of damage, and we see people shooting at us, and we're at 150 HP. Yeah, we keep going aggressive, and we boost in on the point, right? Which probably is not the move we want to be making. If we're that low, we probably should get healed up and then go do that. So here we just get too aggressive when we probably should not be.
Okay.
Good job shooting at the Baptiste, though. That maybe shows me that you're looking at health bars. Oh, awareness. That was some decent awareness of the Moira. Though you're still low HP, so that was the big issue there. Yeah, big issue is just we went in aggressively.
Low HP, yeah.
Alright. Okay, we're using our boosters a lot. That's good. And again, in the situation, we're kind of backing up exactly rather than pushing forwards, right?
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. I never really noticed that. I do that.
Time to raise my APM.
That was a good awareness. All right, so awareness is actually looking like slightly inconsistent in some areas, but also looking pretty solid in some others. Like reacted really fast to the baby diva there. Defense matrixing nothing.
Yeah.
Just probably want to get better usage of it. Like the first thing that you should be paying attention to each game is just their team composition, because that's then you can look through the team comp and get two big things, which are the abilities and the ultimates, right? And think through what specifically should I be intentionally looking to eat up, right? Like for example, if you see they have a Pharah, we can contest Pharah decently easy on Diva, right? Pharah is actually a character who we can kill on Diva pretty easily. We can eat her ultimate, some of her spam shots, and we already talked about the other ones that we can eat as well. So we just want to be intentionally looking out for them, whereas we haven't really been, we haven't eaten any more orbs. We haven't eaten, I mean, they haven't grabbed yet. They haven't barraged yet, but that was like, probably the big one, right? That we just haven't eaten any orbs, right? So we just want to watch out for those specific things. And then besides that, our defense matrix has just been wasted a lot of the time.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Again, thinking for a second that I can defense matrix a laser.
Yeah. On top of that, so when it comes to shooting at Zarya's, there's times where you should be shooting at her bubbles and times where you should not be.
Yeah.
When you should be shooting at her bubbles is if you think you can kill her. So, for example, if she's 1 HP, you want to break her bubble so you can finish her off, or she's out of position, or she's inside, or your entire team is focus firing her. Right? Those are situations where you can break her bubble. Other than that, you should probably not shoot at her bubbles because you're just going to feed her energy and make her do more damage if you're just shooting at her bubbles. Here we just kind of, she's not low, she's not out of position, we don't have any team support, so we're not going to get this kill, and then we just feed her a bunch of ult charge, or not ult charge, energy off of that, right?
I think my only thought was just distracting them so they don't get back through and contest us before we get to the checkpoint kind of thing. Oh no, we got the checkpoint, sorry.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah. Ignore me.
Yep, again, just kind of poking from distance. Good job. I think we got it on top of her. Though it looks like we're not ever canceling our boosters, so keep in mind you have two different ways that you can cancel your boosters. You can melee, which is going to be a really good way to do it a lot of the time, because you can actually, that'll add in a little bit of a burst of damage we get on top of somebody. So it's a good way to do it is you boost in, and then once you reach the person, you're going to melee, and that will cancel your boosters, so you're not just continuing to fly. The other way is you can just click your boosters a second time, because every time we're going somewhere, we always go too far. So like here, watch how we boost on the Mercy is we actually just we boost and then we go in on top of her and then we go past her with it, right? With the boost, right?
Yeah.
So we want to end it in front of her rather than just going past her.
Interesting. Did not know that technique.
Alright, so let's see how we use our bomb in this next fight. Alright, so ability usage hasn't been seeming too terrible. I think the big thing is just that we're constantly like way
Did it
too far
again.
away from people.
Boost faster, and then lost where the hell she was,
Yeah. hmm
and then couldn't get over that somehow.
You can just this thing you
Yeah,
can just
I
hop.
do.
Yeah.
I am about to
Alright.
jump over.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Healing stream engaged. I could use some assistance.
I think we saw as far as 1 HP there, maybe. Okay. Seems like we're not looking up too often to contest the Pharah. Just make sure we're like we're looking up and we're angling up and we're looking around for the Pharah because we can get. She's 1 HP right now. 1 HP above us. That's a very very easy kill we can go for.
Yeah.
But we're just not seeming to pay attention to her too often. So we just want to make sure we're looking around for her. Like, yeah, that's a that's a good ult. That's decent.
Routing tower to forward barrier.
Now I know she's got 1 HP still.
Target eliminated.
I didn't get killed.
Yeah, so there we did kill her. Let's like relook at that. First off, probably just to kill her faster, just boost at her. That way we can like, get the kills sooner rather than just like slowly poking her out. This would mean that we stay alive out of our mech. Also on top of that, we do have our defense matrix that we can use that we could possibly eat some of those rockets with, and that could keep us alive as well. Just don't want to get demeched there when it probably wasn't
Yeah.
necessary.
I wasn't. I thought that when it happened.
Okay, so notice.
She was so low health. I was like, oh, this is just such an easy kill. But of course, at that distance,
Yeah,
you do like
Bailing out.
tiny little baby damage.
half an HP. Yeah.
So, looking again at kind of how our awareness is slightly inconsistent, like, so we see sometimes we'll react immediately, and then the Pharah we don't really pay attention to, and then notice this on the Zarya. Just watch this again.
Healing stream engaged.
Okay. So then we recognize. So it took us like a couple of like 5-6 seconds to realize that she was there. When she walked straight past us, we can hear her footsteps. We can hear her beaming people down and doing damage. Right. That's damage that those are both sound cues that we should probably be listening to. So make sure we're keeping up our audio awareness and we're paying attention using our ears, listening for footsteps, sounds, abilities, ultimates. Right. And then that's going to give us better awareness to know what's going on around us.
This is
Moving
not
the
your time.
payload. Let's hurry up. I'm
Hail the Mahal. Justice reigns from above.
All right. That is unfortunate. Maybe there we could use some better cover usage rather than just kind of walking on the open.
That's happened to me several times on this map, and normally I go to the room on the left and normally survive it until I get another mech, which I then wish I'd done.
That's definitely an option. All right, we can use first off, maybe like as a baby diva, we might know like we're kind of on the cart by ourselves, so we kind of want to watch out for that. We can use the room on our left. We can back up, and we have this whole area here that's cover. We have right side that's cover. We have cart, like we said. You have like there's like small tiny things that you can maybe use, like the tree or these over here. Like we just want to use something, not waltzing out in the open.
Yeah. Overconfidence, perhaps.
The payload moves to its destination. All according to plan.
Okay, very good. Good job boosting in at her, but again, kind of just like backing off too, like right as we were starting to shoot at her.
So when I defense matrix the other diva, would that be considered a waste of it? Because
so it depends on if she's shooting or not. So like, oh snap, went too far back. So here I'm not even sure if she was shooting or not. So like we can rewatch this when we were looking at the diva. One moment. So when Diva's looking at us, is she using her? She is using her missiles. So eating those missiles is fine because that's just stopping us from getting our health shredded. So that was a good fine usage of it. Good job boosting at her.
that's another one of boosting past him. I'm really going to try that technique that you said. Of meleeing out of it. It's interesting.
Routing power to forward barrier.
Right now we should probably just be getting super aggressive because we have such a massive advantage. I think we're also going to talk about target priority real quick. So I'm almost guarantee we went over this like on the other characters, yeah.
Yeah.
So just as a quick reminder, right, that exact same thing applies here. I'm noticing us shooting at tanks a lot when there's like other characters like right next to them. So for example, just in this last fight, right as we were about to cap point, we were shooting at the Diva when there was a Doomfist right next to her, and then here we're shooting at the Zarya when there's a Junkrat right next to her. Right, there's just like a lot of situations where we're ending up doing that, right, and that's what you call equal opportunity. We have the exact same opportunity to shoot at the Zarya as the Junkrat, yet we're choosing to shoot at the wrong target, right? So just
Yeah.
remembering that tanks aren't the ones who we should be prioritizing unless they're low, out of position, or the only thing that we can shoot at.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, yeah, that boosting at people is really gonna have to work on that one.
Yeah. Okay.
But other than that, really good usage of abilities there. I think honestly, besides that just boosting past people, I think we actually have a really good usage out of our boosters. We're using it very frequently. We're boosting at people in good situations. Missiles, maybe. I'd like to see us use them like at a for poking less. But we'll keep an eye at that. I think defense matrix is really the big one for your abilities.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Um, Another thing to keep in mind sometimes when we're just like a mile away from people is that you move slower when you are shooting, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes if you're like super far away from people and you're trying to close the distance, don't shoot, right? That's just going to make it slower while you're walking towards them. Now you don't, if you're within a range where you can do a decent amount of damage that won't apply, you can just slowly trot towards them. But like if you're like super far away from them, so like say for example like this right here against the Doomfist, where we're again I way too far back. So let's say for example like here against the Doomfist, where he's around the corner here, like he's underneath, and we just kind of sit here and are shooting at nothing, right? We're just shooting at nothing. We probably could just let go of shoot and then walk over the edge, right? Just
Yeah.
rather than just continuing to shoot, which would make us slower. Okay, let's see how we use our bomb here.
It's not slower when you are boosting though, right?
Not when you're boosting. You're correct.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, probably say that was okay, so that was good, right? We got the people out of it. I'd maybe say it's a little early though with the timing. I might have used it like this situation. They're not pressured to come out to touch point, and they also have a ton of cover over here. I would probably honestly say that this is almost
Wait till they're
more.
out.
Yeah, yeah. So this is almost more on them than it is like this is kind of their mistake that you capitalized on. But like they have a ton of cover. They have this, they have that, they have this, they have this
I
over
was probably
here.
quite lucky to get it through the doorway as well because I could easily have not
Yeah,
done.
so like here that like that's the big thing. Um So like yeah, like right there, these guys just don't have good cover usage. And Zarya as well, I think she might even had a bubble there that she just didn't even use. Like Zarya had both her bubbles. She could have bubbled both of them just fine, and they both could have stayed alive
Survived.
there.
Yeah.
So in that situation, I'd say it's almost more so on them, like on them that they kind of ran into it. So how we could have timed that better would have been to wait until they walk down to the open, right? When they walk out in the open, there's a lot like for example, they're gonna have to touch cart, right? You're about to cap. They have to go to point. So when they go to point, they're gonna be a lot more out in the open, right? Like for example, if you have a bomb like straight on top of point, right? Where are they gonna go if they're like standing on top,
Yeah.
right?
If they want to touch point, yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And then that can even like that one is going to mean that there's more people out in the open with a lot less places to go. And then that's also could possibly, if they're running away to get to cover, that could also let you cap as well. Make sure that when we're remeching, we're doing it behind the corner. We're not because we wanted to do that right here, not walking around the
Okay.
corner and then doing it
Yeah.
because it's a pretty easy to kill a baby diva while she's remeching because you
Yeah.
can just headshot her. Cause she's basically standing still, right? So you can headshot her or just shoot at her, and then that could get us killed. So typically you want to be a little bit safer when you're remeching.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good tip.
Okay, I like the aggression that we're having here. So again, that maybe indicates some good awareness of of us paying attention to the fact that we're winning that fight. So awareness is looking like really solid so far, with just a few exceptions that are kind of just inconsistencies.
Cool.
All right, so skip forwards here.
Yeah, so I went Orisa on defense just because I feel like she's a more solid choice for under the bridge. And
I'd probably say at the moment, Orisa, like Diva's just a better character than Orisa. Oh, okay. So let's see how we hold this. So we might get into some stuff here. If I'm thinking, well,
I was wondering what this Reinhardt was doing, but then he does
Yeah.
eventually want to grab.
all right. So we might have to talk about something already. So, all right. So let's talk about this. So 7 minutes and 50 seconds. We're going to leave that real quick. We're just gonna real quick create our own thing, and we'll just go on to icon wall our own. You know what, honestly, I probably could have just used the replay, but it's fine. We're already out of it. Icon walls real quick. So what we're about to talk about right now is choke point usage and no man's land usage. So how to properly use the two, and we'll define the two if you're unfamiliar with them. Or I guess I probably should have gone Orisa, but I'll just go Reinhardt. Gets me there faster. It's pretty much the exact same thing. All right. So you are you familiar with the term choke?
Yeah, choke point. Yeah. Sure.
So what would be the choke here on this map?
Well, yeah, I guess maybe a little further forward. I don't know really. I mean, there. I always figure under the bridge is the choke point.
Under the bridge. Yep, you're correct. That is the choke, right?
Okay.
A choke is a.
It scares me when you ask me a question. It's like being put on the spot in class by a teacher.
All right, so a choke is.
I wanted to say that under the bridge straight away, but I was like, I don't know. I'm second guessing myself.
Yep, you're correct. Right, a choke is basically by definition a funnel, right? It's a tiny little condensed area where they have to all funnel through, and that means that you can do a ton of damage to them, right? Now let's talk about that before we get to no man's land usage of how to properly use a choke. Okay, if you are standing, we were positioning in our game right here, right? In front of the choke or inside of the choke. If we are standing in front of the choke, do they have to walk through the choke to shoot at us?
No. Yeah. Okay. No.
Yeah.
Good point.
So therefore, they're not being put at the disadvantage. In fact, where do we have to go if we back up?
Through the choke. Yeah.
Through the choke. So now we are being put. Not only are we not putting them at the disadvantage, we are putting ourselves at the disadvantage, right? If we are holding in front or the middle, right? Now, even if we're holding right here on the other, directly other side, this is definitely better than in front or in the middle, but you can take it one step further. If we're holding here, again, this is such a tiny, it really depends on the choke you're talking about, but because some are longer than others, this is a very short choke. If you're holding at the very end of a very short choke, then to shoot at us and do damage and to poke down our shields and whatever, do they need to walk past the choke? Not really. They can probably do it just from the other side there, which means that, again, you don't really get as much value out of this. Okay, so now that we've...
So they have to go through it.
Yep. So now let's talk a little bit more about what no man's land usage and how that pairs with this. So no man's land is... And I'm going to assume you don't know this one because no one ever knows what this is. So no man's land is basically any long open area where there's no cover at all, right? And we've talked, we talked about cover. I think you had a decent cover usage. Like, it was decent enough, right? No man's land is where there's pretty much just no cover at all, right? So, for example, that would be the bridge on this side of the map over there, right? When you're on that bridge, there's no cover anywhere unless there's a cart there, right? This right here is no man's land. This stretch. On most payload maps, the entire path of a payload is pretty much no man's land. So if you follow this entire pathway, if you're standing in the middle of the pathway, it's no man's land, right? So right here, this long stretch is no man's land, right? And therefore, no man's land pretty much acts the exact same way that a choke does in how you position accordingly, right? If we are holding right here, right, on a no man's land, then that means that we have to walk. Then they don't have to walk through the no man's land, which is bad positioning. If they have to walk through it, then that means that we get to spam them the entire way where they have no cover at all, right? Whereas if we hold this, now we have to walk backwards through that no man's land to get back to cover if we're being pushed, right? So we put ourselves at that disadvantage. So proper positioning on this map, on this point, is usually going to look like this, where you're holding this corner, right? That means they have to walk through the choke, they have to walk through the no man's land, and you're not putting yourself at any disadvantages. If they choose to go right side, then you can rotate pretty much. You can see if they're going right side pretty easily, and it's a pretty fast rotation. And then this acts as another choke point as well, because you can see how this funnels them, right? So that's usually how you're gonna position. On top of that, Orisa's a pretty spammy character, so that like she enjoys longer distances, which will support your character as well. So that is how you're gonna hold defensively on those maps, or on those points, right? Now, same thing, right? If we're holding this right here, we won't typically we're not going to like hold up here inside of them, which would mean that we have to back up through no man's land. Probably are going to be best off holding the corner here, right? Same thing over here. Like if we're like holding this bridge, for example, we wouldn't hold at the front of the bridge. We're going to hold at the end of the bridge, right? If we're defending, because at the end of this bridge, we have now more cover. We have this thing and that thing, and we have the cart when they push it in, and we're going to have this and that, right? We just have more cover, and we don't have to walk backwards through that no man's land, right? So that's how no man's land and choke points work and how we want to use them, and we just weren't really doing that properly on
Well, I didn't.
our
Yeah,
first
I mean,
one.
I didn't have known any of that really, to be honest. So I because I kind of think of myself as obviously I am a lower SR player.
Yeah.
I kind of look for someone else to show me where to set up, and
Yeah.
obviously I'm playing with lower SR players. So
Yeah, I'd probably recommend to, and I just told this to the last person I just coached earlier today. Don't take the advice from low rank players, because they're probably not going to have very good advice
yeah, that's
most of
true.
the time. Now this can, you get a little bit of an exception with like, some coaches who like really study the game and like maybe are lower SR than where their knowledge base, but I wouldn't don't just analyze the like, unless you see a really exceptional play and you want to copy the play that someone makes. Probably don't take positional advice or awareness advice or anything like that, like just from a low ranked player, because they're not going to have the best advice in that sense. Instead, if you're looking for that type of advice, you can look towards like YouTube videos or streamers or
Yeah,
professional players or coaches like the Boogie. You know, that those are probably the places where you're gonna get better advice in terms of positioning and whatnot. Okay, so here, let's see. We'll get back to where we were. So like besides that positioning, let's see. Why do we lose this fight? Because I don't think that it looks like our team just got kind of picked immediately here. So they have a Pharah. Okay, so I think maybe Pharah gets a bunch of picks. All right.
yeah. See, the Reinhardt was straight up there, and so I kind of went with him.
Now,
Yeah,
as a just real quick, just to let you know, this is the bad positioning is going to happen a lot, right? Just from your teammates. Like, so let's talk about like what happens if your teammates are in this bad positioning. Like, let's say we're trying to hold back here, right? But
yeah,
then our entire team decides to go
yeah,
up here, right?
yeah,
What do you do? Because I feel like that would probably come up pretty often.
yeah.
Go and be stupid with them. So this is a quote from Jane, who is a streamer, Overwatch
I
League coach.
know. I've watched his
Mhm.
stuff. Yeah.
Exactly, right. He says that if one person is doing something stupid, that is called feeding. If six people are doing something stupid, that's called a strategy. So if you have one Reinhardt who's all the way up there, then you might want to just like maybe let him be up there, like, or like I guess maybe I would be with him if he's in a decently safe position. Let's say a Reinhardt's like in their spawn right here, like it's just like, I don't know, like he's looking for like a side charge pin or whatever from this way or something like that. He's being stupid, right? Go let him be stupid, let him feed, because you can still win the fight even while down one Reinhardt. But if it's six people doing that, or five, or
Yeah.
sorry, if it's five other people doing that, then go join them, because it's better that you join them and make it the strategy than if you don't join them and then have just one person sitting out doing nothing, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of
Makes
what you do.
sense.
Start off your positioning, like basically for the first like 40 seconds, position here. If you want to in comm, say, hey, can you guys come back and hold with me in the corner, or something like that if you want to. And then if they don't and they're still up here, then you can come position up with them.
Okay, that's awesome advice.
Okay, so here we lose a Baptiste at the very beginning, and then a Junkrat because Junkrat's being stupid, and then he somehow got 2 mine kills because Silver, and then Doomfist kills a Mercy. So yeah, just we lose a bunch of people already because they're off doing their own stuff. Now we back up because we see that we're down people, so that's again maybe indicative of some good positioning. Gold usage poorly timed again. I'd probably say it's similar to when you're using your
I thought it when I used it as well.
yeah.
Thought there was
It's
no need. But the only thing I say in my defense there is I thought, well, they're hardly pushing it. This is one dude, so if I can avoid being killed by the Doomfist or whatever, then it'll be recharged by the next.
yeah, but you want to use it when he's actually shooting you and doing things
Yeah.
against you. So
Mhm.
you use it when similar to Diva, when abilities are coming in, when ultimates are coming in, when you're getting high, like when you have a high density of damage, when you don't have shields, right, when you're pushing or backing up, right. Those are times where you're using your gold, right. Here nothing's happening, so therefore largely goes wasted. Now right there, let's say we just golded the second the Doomfist punched us, that's different.
Yeah.
That's when the gold is
I got
actually going to do
lucky
something,
here,
right?
and rather strategically, yeah,
Mhm.
I get what you're saying. I got
Alright.
lucky that he punched me rather than using it at the right time.
Healing would be appreciated.
Alright.
I think I was just saying need healing.
Engaging fortifications.
Pull a bit more often. I'm seeing us hold on to it a little bit. It's basically both your pull and your shield are things that you're just gonna be using pretty much off a cooldown. Just every time you get them, you're just using them to get value out of it. Whereas your fortify you're gonna be using more reactively in situations where
Okay.
it's needed. Um, you want to be using your pull because there's no reason not to. You just want to use it to group people up, do extra damage. All right.
For your own safety, get behind the barrier.
Again, pulling. Let's one moment. I'm gonna look back here real quick and look at
Get behind the barrier.
something. So here, just crosshair placement. I think that's something we talked about on Doomfist and Hog. Yeah.
Yeah, I try it. I honestly constantly think about it now. Is hitting people in the head. I do
Yeah.
try to.
So just something we want to continue to work on because you just hit a couple body shots from Ryan, and then we look at how where we're aiming on the, right here for the Moria, right? Just kind of aiming down, not really at head level, and that just means we hit body shots, right? Oh, see there, like we were aiming at feet, and then we probably could have we probably could have just melted her if we, because look at Moira's HP, she's like 1 HP. We probably could have just gotten that kill if we were aiming slightly higher to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that I still consciously think about. So, like, you saw me there hitting her in the body and then going, "Oh,
Yeah. So yeah, you just want to get to that point where it's a habit, right, where it just comes naturally. Here we are really far pushed forwards when we probably shouldn't be. So currently we have 2 people alive. I'm gonna count this guy as dead, right?
I think I think better of this. If you keep playing, I think better of it and then back up.
All right, yeah. Okay, so we back up. Oh yeah, that's good. That's good. Oh, do we?
Well, all right. The Ryan was pushing. I don't know.
Yeah. So in that situation, probably aren't wanting to do this. So I guess we have 2 people dead in spawn. They have close spawns. We have a tracer. Like this is a situation where probably should just be holding better cover. Now, like when you have 4 people doing this is a little bit more acceptable, but like still just know that it's like not the right play to make at the very least. Though it becomes slightly more acceptable with the fact that it's just our whole team is doing it.
Cease your resistance.
Definitely don't want to be bongoing though in this fight because it's currently 3v6, 1, 2, or I guess we 3v5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus 3 people. That's just a lost fight, right? Just as a quick reminder, I think you've had this for the most part, but it's how to tell, watch kill feed and tell whether or not you're winning or losing. It's 1 to 2 people's advantage or disadvantage. 2 to 3 people's won or lost fight. No ults and won or lost fights here. This is a lost fight because we're down two people and they flow spawns, right? And we're ulting, which just basically means that it's just gonna be wasted. So I would imagine this doesn't really do a whole lot. So good headshots there. We get melted. There we had gold, we had shield, we had pull. Just use one of them.
am not ready to be deactivated.
Yeah, and then here our team just kind of keeps going in one by one. So here we have okay. So now we are grouped up, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. We're good. We have our team. We can go in and get aggro. Make sure we're placing our shield. I'm noticing that we're placing our shield pretty infrequently. We kind of put it down once in a while. That's something that we want to be using much more often. I think our ability usage on our Devo is just a little bit more solid. Also, I forgot we need to go over strengths and weaknesses real quick. So strengths and weaknesses, right? What are we looking at? So I'd probably say ability usage wise, Orisa's looking more inconsistent. Diva, the big one, was our defense matrix. So overall, probably looking at like a pretty medium, maybe a medium high priority on our ability usage. But let's go over the other ones first before I think that through all the way. Ultimate usage, that last one we kind of whiffed, but then before that, both of our Diva Bombs did stuff, though they could have done, there's slight things that we could have done a little bit better with them. So overall ultimate usage, I'd probably put it like a low to medium, maybe a medium, depending on how how we use our other ones here. So right now it's a low to medium, right? Priority to work on. Mechanics, I think general mechanics looking pretty solid. The big one is just making sure that we're aiming at head level. Target priority comes in there a little bit too, making sure we're not just shooting at tanks and when DPS and supports are right next to them. You also, and then that's pretty much the big ones in there, so it's not that big of a category at the moment. That one's probably, again, looking at like a low to medium. Now, where we get into some bigger ones, where we get into positioning and awareness. So awareness, or I guess awareness is like inconsistent. So awareness, inconsistent, right? There's sometimes where we're looking really solid with it, and then sometimes we just kind of forget, right? Or don't notice stuff. So, like for example, you didn't notice the kill feed last fight, and sometimes people will be like right next to us, and we don't notice they're right next to us. Making sure, so being aware of where our team and the enemy team is, being aware of, our audio and listening to people when they're behind us and right next to us. Like Doomfist is behind us in spawn at the very beginning of the game, and there's a Zarya who just kind of walked past us and was shooting at stuff. So listen for footsteps, listen for gunshots, abilities, and ultimates, right? Pay attention to team composition. Team composition dictates your play style, right? When they're on different team comps, we are going to be, for example, defense matrixing different things, right? And with different ultimates and abilities that we're looking to intentionally eat. So those are team composition dictates that. Paying attention to, are the sky and looking for Pharah, like, because we weren't really doing that too much on our Diva. And then those are the main ones on a Diva that we're just all being unaware of. And now there are definitely a lot of times where we are doing really good with awareness, but then there's also almost an equal amount of times where we're not being aware of those same things. So we want to make
Okay.
sure we're just getting that to be consistent. I would probably say that comes because of like the frequency of the inconsistent. It's hard to say. Probably say around the medium, maybe like a medium high. I'm thinking around the same level of like our ability usage. Are the two big ones. Maybe we'll put those both at a medium high, right? We'll kind of just bump both of those up a little bit, priority wise. Then finally positioning, um, making sure we're understanding we're understanding choke point usage and no man's land usage, making sure we're using cover and not being out in the open, and then also making sure that we're understanding our ranges. So on Diva, you're a close range, mid to close range character. Most of the time, you're going to really prefer to be right on top of people. So we want to make sure we're prioritizing that and not just backing away from people. And then on top of that, making sure that on Orisa, we're also, I'd probably say a lot of the times here, getting a little too close to people. Orisa is the exact opposite. She is a
Right.
long range
Range
character.
character.
Yeah, she's a range character. She's mid to long range. She prefers to play at a distance. Yeah, we're kind of running at people sometimes. So, I'd probably say just mix those up. We're kind of opposite on those. Where we're just, or maybe we're like kind of in the middle where we shouldn't be, right? Just play to the character's strengths. And then overall, I'd probably say that puts our positioning at like a medium. I again maybe a medium high. That like those are three are definitely like kind of closer to the top, whereas the other two are close to the bottom. So I'll probably say that one goes for a medium for now. And then ability usage we talked about. I didn't talk about them individually, but just the gold, make sure we're using it when it's needed. Defense matrix, make sure we're using when it's needed. Shield and halt usage, off using them off a cooldown, and then boosters, making sure we're canceling that, and that's pretty much it. So look at this, for example, this fight. Let's just, look at how we come out here. So we come out here, we're dropping in, we use our shield pretty late in the fight. Like, we just kind of plop it down pretty late. We probably need to pop gold that early if we just put a shield down. And then we also just kind of run straight at the Reinhardt like we're a brawl character. Like, Reinhardt is a brawl character. Like, you can very easily outdistance Reinhardt. All it takes is you to do this, right? If we're right here, Reinhardt cannot hit us. She cannot swing on us. Can't do anything. But we're intentionally good.
To stay up on the top of that staircase as I came round.
Um, I would probably say it stinks because I probably say yes. And no at the same time. It probably, like, if we were like to best positioning be over with our team, but honestly, yeah, I think probably sticking up here might do you some more benefit, or even just like even if we dropped, just like being more towards in here or this way would just be better for you than just running straight into the Reinhardt. Really, anything but running into the Reinhardt would be better, right? Pulling, looking up at the Pharah, who's right above us, right? Just are things to be paying attention to. Okay, again, stepping a little bit close. Probably just want to be holding the corner. The other thing you're going to notice when we put our, shielding corners, for example, when we shield a corner, half of the shield basically disappears into the wall. This is going to make it so that they have less shield to shoot at, and therefore it's going to stay alive longer because it can absorb less spam damage. The other thing to keep in mind is that as a tank, you have the most power over where your team stands out of any other character, right? Your Mercy doesn't really control where your team stands, but you as Orisa dictate that more. So when we position ourselves on corners, this can help, get our team to get into better positioning, as well as, both using the no man's land better, but then also just using cover better. Like, if they're, for example, like wrapped this far out, if we have our shield just smack dab here, they're going to be in bad positioning because they're not near cover. Whereas if we position ourselves over near cover, they might follow us near to cover. So us positioning at corners is going to also assist our entire team to have better positioning. Okay, not using our pull at all still. Okay, some good headshots there. Mechanics looking decently solid.
I'm not making excuses, but it is a little harder to be accurate with
controller.
Yeah, I always feel like I would be more confident aiming at heads if I were on keyboard and mouse.
Which, to be honest, like, it's like, aiming, when it comes to aiming at heads, it's not necessarily very much more difficult than hitting bodies. It's more so that when you hit like when you were aiming ahead, you hit natural headshots, and the shots that you're missing is made up through the damage that you're doing, right? So you do, when you hit what do you say?
Oh, yeah, I suppose that's true. Yeah, because the ones that do land, you might miss more, but the ones that do land are doing way more damage.
Yeah, you're doing basic. Think of it, on most characters, it's pretty much twice the amount of damage, right? And that means that you might miss a couple extra shots, but you're doing a lot more damage in headshots, and that's the height in which you want to aim for practicing at, right? And that's going to basically it's going to change your default shots. So you shoot at somebody, right? Like let's just say we're shooting at Symmetra here. If we're hitting our body, we're doing body damage, but we just like take it up a hair, just go up to the head. We're keeping our crosshair in pretty much the exact same spot, but we're just naturally hitting the headshot now. It's really like not too difficult or not too different of a kind of it's not too different in terms of like how hard it is to hit, because a lot of characters are pretty skinny. I'd probably say like on tanks, those are the only guys where it's like super easy to hit their body, but at the same time they also have bigger head hitboxes, so it's super easy to hit their heads, right? On any squishy target, like look at Mercy, like her head is basically the exact same like sides aside width-wise as the rest of her body is, right?
Yeah.
So you're, just aiming for heads is going to mean a lot more damage and a lot more consistency. Hey, here getting little too close, or
Pushing like
a
a
lot too
character.
close. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now here we back up. Fine, that's good. Pull them, pull them, pull them. Right. Where you're just not really using pull at all.
Yeah. I do forget that one with Orisa. That's fair.
Probably don't want to spend too much time looking at ball. It's not gonna do too much for us. Right.
My
So.
thinking here, before you criticize
Hmm?
it, my thinking was that it lasts quite a long time and they're all about to come around the corner. But
Yeah. So, how I would what I would say to that, so two different things we're talking about here. First off with the timing, and the second off with the placement of it. So, first off with the timing of it, probably don't want to use it this early. So especially, I would say especially against higher teams. Now you want to play as if you're playing against higher rated
yeah,
players, because if you're not, then you're just going to get punished by those exact same higher rated players. If you, for example, use this in like a Diamond Plus lobby, or did this in Diamond Plus lobby, what they could do is just not go in. They could just wait it out, and they would just wait the 15 seconds that it's going to last and wait until it disappears, and then they would push. And then now you've just wasted an ultimate, and they have a greater chance of winning that next fight, right? So
okay,
this is just too early. On top of that, that just means that, like, even in this situation, let's say that they don't do that. Now, let's say this fight that they're coming into lasts like 30 whole seconds, right? If they're in is still around the corner here for the next 5 seconds, and that's just 5 seconds of our ultimate that we just wasted, right? Whereas we could have just placed it as they're out in the open. It's kind of same as the Diva Bomb. We placed it more so when the fight's begun rather than before the fight started, and then now we have it lasts longer during the fight, right? So instead of wasting that first 5 seconds, we get that extra 5 seconds. So in this situation, this is before the fight is the fight has not begun yet, right? At this point we are in the poke phase where we're just going pew pew shoot shoot from very far away. Both teams are just kind of poking and prodding. Nothing's happened yet. No picks are flying. No ults are being used besides yours. And the big one is that both teams are very far away from each other. You're not very close to each other, which means that this is just too early, right? Now onto the placement of it. Just two out in the open. A big thing that you can do on Orisa when you're placing bongos is placing it behind your shield. So a very popular tactic is just to now we don't have shield here, but we could potentially save it until we do. Right, a big popular strategy for Orisas to do is just place a shield and then place bongo right after, because then shield can protect the bongo. The other thing we can do with bongo is just use cover for it. The exact same way we'd use cover for anything else.
yeah,
So, for example, like if we are using this defensive bongo, right, and we see like where our whole team is at, we could maybe place bongo over here near this wall, right? Now that
it doesn't
bongo
go
would,
through walls, does it, Bongo?
what do you say?
It doesn't go through walls, does
It
it?
does
To
not.
shut. No, didn't think
It
so.
does. It does for like a couple seconds. So it'll, if I, for example, if I had bongo here and I walked around the wall, I'd have it for like the next 2 seconds, I believe,
Right.
and then it would disappear. So here we could place it right next to this wall. It'd
Hmm.
still see the exact same number of people, except for now it would just be closer to cover. Far, would not be able to shoot it as easily. And
Yeah.
here, for example, like anybody who peeks out would be able to see it. Whereas if it's around the corner here, a lot less people can see it. Right? Just that's an idea. The other thing, like for example, is if our whole team is holding back here, we could just place around this corner, and then now our entire team gets the benefit, but it's just around the corner. Right. So here's just out in the open is the big one. Now,
Okay.
good.
Yep.
Okay, you said yeah. All right. So, you also kind of think of bongos in two ways. You have an offensive bongo and a defensive bongo. At the moment, you're kind of using this defensively, right? You're not pushing with it. You guys are just kind of chilling. You're sitting in place. When you have a defensive bongo, you want it to have the most cover as possible because you're not really planning on moving too much. When you're using an offensive bongo, as in you're going to be going in and running into them with it, then your bongo you need to make sure it has lines of sight. So make sure, like, so for example here, let's say we were like about to run down lane with this one. If we place it right there, then we run this way, and then it's just out of our line of sight, right? So if we're using that offensive bongo, we need to make sure that it has line of sight on us. So that's just a quick thing to add in there.
Okay.
So let's exit out here. We're going to go over the main points real quick, do a quick review, and then wrap up the session from there. So keep in mind that these top ones, I think, are pretty close together in their importance. Now, I'd probably say that I'm putting positioning. I'd probably say positioning's pretty important, but the reason why I wouldn't put positioning as high is because it's not going to be as useful at your current level. As it's useful to know the information and to try to apply it in your gameplay if possible. But like we said, your entire team might not be using those good positions very often, right? Like they might not even like listen to you and position with you, so that might not be the best place for you to be. So that's why it's just positioning might be slightly lower here on the list. So number one, I think we're going to put at our ability usage, just because that's such a basic core part of the game that we need to get used to. So Diva, make sure canceling our fly with just a melee. You can also cancel it again by just clicking the button again, and this is going to allow us to not just boost past people, and then I can also add in as burst damage as well. Missiles, make sure sometimes we're just maybe using them like when we're too far away from people. Keep in mind that just becomes super inaccurate at ranges, so we might want to save it for when we're boosting at somebody where it's a lot more accurate because we're closer. And then defense matrix, keep an eye on the things that you want to use it for. Abilities, ultimates, we can use it when we are low, when our team is low. We can also use it when we're pushing or getting out, or if there's just a ton of damage coming in. But we don't want to use it just for our everyday random spam damage, right? Because that's just going to just waste it, right?
Okay.
Then
I
on.
think it's kind of like when you were saying that I wasn't using Holt or whatever you call it, the for Orisa, the little orb thing. It's kind of wanting to use it proactively and not, you know what I mean? I think I'm kind of thinking, oh, I've got it, so I might as well use it.
Yeah. So a lot of the times, like it has a like a
Depends on the
finite
type of
resource, right?
ability, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it has a finite resource, and you don't want to just end up. The big thing is you don't want to end up wasting it, right? Like if you were,
Yeah.
for example,
You want it when you need it.
yeah. For example, let's think of the Halt example, right, where I said use the orb. It now if you're walking out of spawn, what's your orb gonna do, right? Or if their entire team is dead, what's your orb gonna do? Right? There are times to use abilities and times not to use abilities. Right? I'm saying to use it off a cooldown, but that's within its own limits as well. Right? If you use it when you can actually see people and use it and
Yeah.
actively
Yeah.
use it off of cooldown. Right?
Yeah.
Same thing with defense matrix. If it's not going to do anything, then there's no use in using it because it's just going to be wasting it. Right? Now, Orisa abilities, halt. Make sure that we are using off a cooldown, right? Using much more often. With our shield, make sure again using off a cooldown, using much more often. Place it on corners as well. And then our fortify usage, our gold. Make sure that we're using that pretty much the same as our diva, the defense matrix when we actually need it, right?
Reactively, yeah.
Reactively, right? In situations where abilities, ultimates, going in, going out. When we're low, when our team maybe needs the extra tanking, right? Those are situations where we use it, right? Now moving on to number 2, probably gonna put that at awareness. Awareness, paying attention to kill feed, 1 to 2, 2 to 3. Advantage and disadvantage versus won and lost fight. No ults in won or lost fight, right? And that's just the basics of that. Make sure paying attention to team compositions. Team compositions dictate your play style, so pay attention to, especially what abilities. Like in that last game, pay attention to what abilities can I look to block with a diva and what ultimates too, right? Because we didn't. I don't know if I even saw you doing that very often. Like I don't know how many abilities ultimates I can even say that you ate. Then on top of that, make sure we're paying attention to where are people in game, right? Enemies and our teammates as well, right? Just paying attention to where are people at. Pay attention to our audio, cues. Pay attention to what's happening in our ears and listening for people, right? There's a bunch of awareness things. Like for the most part, there were some really good times with our awareness, and then there are also some inconsistencies in it, right? Where we just want to get better with it, right? Now moving on to number 3. Number 3, I'm gonna put up positioning. Keeping good cover usage, making sure we're positioning on corners for all the reasons we just listed beforehand. You properly using chokes and no man's lands, holding behind them, not in front or in the middle of them.
Okay.
and then those are and then also getting closer to people on Diva, and then further away from people on Orisa, right?
Yeah.
So those are the big ones. Moving on to number 4. Number 4 is going to be probably your mechanics. Mechanics, make sure we're aiming at head level whenever possible. We're getting used to that. It wasn't terrible. It's just, some slight inconsistencies. Make sure we're keeping good target priority. Again, it wasn't terrible. Just some inconsistencies where we want to make sure we're aiming at, we're aiming for the tanks and not the tanks, for the supports and the DPS, not the tanks, right? And then besides that, I can't remember. Was there anything else with our mechanics? I think that was it. I can't recall if there was anything else. Now moving on to final one, ultimate usage, right? Make sure not using it before the fight's begun. That happened with Diva and Orisa. Make sure that we are also... actually, you know what? I'm going to flip those around. Ultimate usage goes above mechanics. Now that I'm thinking about it, right? Making sure we're not using it in won or lost fights. Making sure we're not using it too early. Making sure that we are, Orisa Bongo, right? You use it, you have offensive and defensive. If it's defensive, be super place it around the corner. Make sure we're using cover with it. Offensive, you might need to give it a little bit more line of sight. And then Diva, making sure that, we're not using it too early, and then also just launching it in when the fight is about, basically when you're about to cap points, so you can just keep them off of it, right? And when they're out, also just watching for when they're out in the open. All right, those are all the main things. Any questions about anything we've talked about, or just anything at all?
Nope, I don't think so.
All right.
Looks like you're about to hit plat, I guess.
Oh yeah, plat border coming up soon here.
I don't know how you resisted playing the extra couple of rounds to get you there.
Yeah, I mean, I would be probably diamond border if I combined all the accounts that I've played
Oh,
on
really?
and everything.
Oh, wow.
So I mean,
Right.
I kind of want the achievement though of getting it though. I'm kind of sad that I'm getting to ugly border now.
Yeah, it looks nice with 5 stars, it has to be said.
All right, so yeah, let me just end the recording.